Greetings, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White. I am so thankful to be here with you this evening, and I hope that all is well with you. I hope that you are enjoying your new year so far. And I wanted to come in here with some really cool information and just to talk about some different things that we could do to make the world a better experience for all of us. So, with that said, I first want to get started into my announcements. The Let's Get Gritty podcast with Dr. India White will be aired on for wanting to be a part of the Let's Get Gritty podcast. Then you can send me your email, a photo, and a bio to india.white.123@gmail.com and we'll get you scheduled. Now, also, if you're wanting to follow me on social media and to connect, maybe you want to reach out for whatever reason, my social media handles are provided below. It's Facebook is Miss India White, LinkedIn is The India White, Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach, Instagram is Indie238, YouTube is India White 123, and TikTok is Dr. India White. So I hope that you connect with me. Also, please feel free to check out my website at www.india-white.com for blogs, books, and to schedule me for your next speaking event, coaching event, and other opportunities that you have. Now, with that said, I wanted to kind of come on here and talk about some equitable practices and what we can do in regards to education and just in general when it comes down to supporting various leaders. Today, I want to focus on advocating for leaders of color, but I don't want to just talk about advocating for them in our everyday conversation. I also want to talk about advocating for leaders of color in pay. How are we really making sure that we are advocating for leaders in the way that they are being compensated for the work that they do? So, with that said, the first things first is, of course, we talked about equity. Equity has so many different lenses. Of course, we know that equity has a race lens, gender lens, ethnicity, the socio-emotional status. Um, there's disability, religion, emotional status, mental status, and beyond. And we know that equity is whenever you are able to provide resources and accommodations um, so that people can be successful. So, with that said, as we're talking about really advocating for leaders of color, what does that look like? So, my heart really goes out to leaders of color across the nation that are doing their best, but yet they are coming up short in various areas, whether that's financially and opportunities and beyond. So I want to share some facts with you that I was able to dig and find on the web. First things first is I want to talk about leaders of color. In particular, I'm going to talk about Black teachers and I'm going to talk about just different things. And the first finding is that I found that among leaders, and this is from bls.gov, that this is a website that you can go to find out like different salaries and things of leaders and just different areas. So it says here, among the major race and ethnicity groups, Hispanics and Blacks continue to have considerably low earnings than whites and Asians. So this is a fact that they found in the year 2021. Okay, now let's keep going. I was able to find an article on Prism Reports, Prism, PRISM Reports, and they reported that their findings, they found that Black teachers in particular earn $2,700 less than white teachers, and those who teach in high poverty areas earn $4,000 less than those who teach in low poverty regions. So this is very interesting because if you're earning $4,000 less and you're doing your best, I mean, that's when you do the math on that, that's a whole extra paycheck at least that, others are getting, and it's they're doing the same work. So there's definitely an area of focus here. It's almost like you're just doing a month's worth of teaching for free if you're a Black teacher, which is definitely an area of focus and an area of concern. And I think that many leaders across the nation understand this, and they're trying to figure out remedies and ways that they can support, leaders of color. And I'm thankful for those out there that are doing their best to advocate and to see how they can bridge the economic gap. Now, I also wanted to talk about, just in general, teachers and how they spend money on school supplies. So here, the National Center of Education Statistics, they found that the average teacher spent $479 on school supplies in the year 2014, 2015. However, the IRS only allows them to deduct up to $250. Now, if you have been in the classroom space and you are like, you've been an official certified teacher, you understand, even a permanent sub, you understand that when you are trying to prepare the classroom, you get the keys to your classroom, yay. And then it's like, you're okay, okay, I've got to start preparing. You start like, okay, I've got to get pens, pencils, paper, markers, whiteboards, erasers. I've got to get posters for the room because I don't want my room to look like it's just all the walls are bare and it's a prison. So you're going to spend money. And then some teachers are like, well, maybe I want some, you know, um, smart notebooks or some, iPads or something. Well, that's really going to cost. And many of the times that's not going to come from the school. So you're going to have to come out of pocket for that. Hopefully you caught a deal at Black Friday, so that you can provide your students with that. But if you're still adding up the math, teachers are spending at least $500 to $1,000 every year of their own money. I can attest as an educator, I never spent less than $500 whenever I started a classroom at the beginning of the year, and I'm getting all of those things prepped, and I'm laminating things, and I'm buying index cards, and I'm cleaning the room. I'm buying wipes for sanitation, and I'm buying hand sanitizer. All of those things, they do add up. And so I think that these things need to be brought into consideration when we're considering the salary of educators and how we can compensate them as well. I really do wish that some foundations, maybe you're not in education per se, maybe you're a business owner. I wish some foundations could like donate school supplies and donate like sanitation supplies for schools, especially in particular your Title One schools, because they need it. I mean, you're dealing with 2,500, students at a particular school per se. How many hand sanitizer containers are you going to need? How many wipes is that? How many markers and crayons? Like, I mean, they could really use some support, especially if you're a business and, you have some old computers you're not using anymore. You've got some old pens and things. Why don't you just stop by a local school and see if you could drop those off? I think that would be a great deed, a way to give back. Um, so yeah, so I digress. But anyway, so this right here, the facts is showing us that teachers are spending that, but they're not even able to claim that on their taxes. Now, another thing is that there's also a disparity of teachers. And so in 2020, over 80% of the teachers in public schools were white, and teachers of color left the profession at a much higher rate. So now you're starting to see that you have at least 80% of teachers that are white. However, on the flip side of this, you have to understand that the majority of students nationwide are students of diverse backgrounds. There's at least 70% of students that are considered non-white or other race, mixed races, African American, Hispanic. You put all of those students together nationwide, those students are greater than just 50%. So what happens in that case? There's a cultural divide, there's a disconnect, there's misunderstandings of communication. I think communication is everything when you're trying to teach students of various backgrounds and understand them and to provide equitable practices. There definitely has to be some intentional communication skills being built so that you can build those relationships with students. So, because if not, those students are going to have walls up. You're not going to get anything done in those classrooms. So, we got to focus though that why are African American teachers, Hispanic teachers, Asian teachers, teachers of various diverse backgrounds, why are they leaving the profession? And I think that, definitely teacher pay is an area of focus for that. And so I found something else from the prison report. They said here a diverse teaching workforce has been proven to be beneficial for all students, particularly students of color who achieve higher test scores. which researchers believe may be due to the same race. I remembered I was teaching a class. This was not intentional. I promise it was not. And the majority of the students were diverse. And at the end of it all, when we got our scores back from the standardized test, many of those diverse students actually performed better than their peers. And it raised a question among some of my non-diverse colleagues of what happened? Why did they score a 5? Why did they score a 4? And it was like they kind of put it together, like they saw that there was a correlation in having representation of diverse leadership in the classroom spaces of children that are diverse. Children learn significantly better from teachers that they can relate to, the teachers that share something with them. And so I found that very interesting and very intriguing that I actually had that experience myself. And so that the fact that the data backs that, I'm not really too surprised by that. I think that what we have to do is we have to now start aligning with that data as well. Now, look at this as well. So, different parts of the nation is dealing with different things. So, in New Mexico, 36% of teachers are Hispanic. That is the largest share of Hispanic teachers in any state. And, but listen to this, the largest share of Black teachers is in Georgia, okay, where a quarter of the teaching force is Black. So that's very interesting because in Georgia, I can tell you that there's more than just 25% of children that are Black in Georgia, but yet they only have 25% of teachers that are Black, and that's from Pew Research. So it seems like there's a misallocation of representation when it comes down to teachers, and then there's not like teacher salary being dished out in a way that can really service these teachers of diverse backgrounds. So then that's why they're leaving by the droves, and it's just creating a problem. And so hopefully we can get a hang of this, because it's like, yeah, we want to recruit teachers, but why would a teacher want to go into the classroom space if they're not making the salary they need to make, if they are not feeling safe, if they're not feeling like they belong, and they're not feeling like they're validated? You're going to continue to have this gap. And I think that, leaders are starting to see this. And so this is why this has definitely become an area of focus for all of us. So, with that said, share my screen and I want to talk more about the distribution of teachers in the nation. And when you're looking at the percentage of, for instance, so as you can see, this is my screen. And so it's talking here. This is from the National Center of Education Statistics. And it says Teacher and Principal Survey. This is the percentage distribution of African American school teachers and all other school teachers by school type and selected teacher characteristics. This data was pulled in 2017, 2018. So let's get into it. So here, how many male teachers do we have? We have 23% of teachers that are male, 76% of teachers that are female. I don't know how you have 76.2, but whatever. Less than 30 years of age, you've got 15% of teachers. Okay. You've got 30 to 49 years old. That's 55%. Okay. And then you've got 11% of them are 50 to 54 years old, and 17% of those teachers are 17% of the workforce that is 55 years or older. Now, years of teaching experience, you've got 42% of teachers nationwide have had 15 or more years. Excellent. Okay. Now, I want us to start looking at some of these trends. So we've got 76% are female. We have 55% are ages 30 to 49. We have 42% are 15 or more years in the teaching profession. Let's keep going. The highest degree earned by teachers, on average, 48% of teachers have at least a master's degree. 8% have a doctorate. Okay. Or higher than a master's. It says higher than a master's. It could be a specialist as well. And then it says alternative path to certification. No. So that means that 81% of teachers went to school for this. Whereas 18%, they probably went into another profession, business, medical field, and then they transitioned into education. And then here, We have 50% of teachers are elementary school, 49% are secondary. Then let's look at another outlier. Childhood education or teaching childhood elementary is 30% of our teachers. And then mathematics, whoop, whoop, it's only 8%. We have teaching English, 11%, teaching ESL, 1%, foreign languages, 3%. So these are some of the outliers. Now let's keep going. Salary. This is what I wanted us to focus on. So you've got for the majority of teachers, okay, the majority age is around, I think it was 30 to 49 years old. They've had 15 years of teaching experience. They're predominantly female. And then here, look at this. The average base teaching salary is $55,600. That's average, which means that many of these teachers are making less than this. And then it says average total income from all sources. Wow, $58,300. That's what we're dealing with. And this is why there's an issue in education as to why we cannot retain rock star teachers, because the average salary is 58,000. I know some school districts that, unfortunately, it's just tough to keep teachers, and then teachers don't have benefits. Some teachers are having to, go out for government assistance just to survive because they're not getting what they need. So these are areas of focus, and I think that these conversations need to be had at school board meetings and things like that to see what we can do. And then, of course, let's keep going. So it's like the same thing. They're talking now about public schools. So same thing, 76% female teachers, 23% to the male teachers. Okay. 30 to 49 years old, 56%, 15 years of teaching, 43%, master's degree, 49%. Okay. Some type of state certification that is like a regular state certification. So 90% of these teachers, they went to school for this. And the average salary in a public school, average base teaching salary is $57,500. The average total income of all sources from that for that teacher to survive throughout the year is $60,000. So private schools, let's keep scrolling down. It's about the same numbers here. Oh, wow. The salary dropped significantly. The average total income of a private school, $45,000. So when you put this in, and this is on average, and then you're telling me that, this is just, well, actually, this is the percentage of Black American school teachers. So this is what Black American school teachers are making on average. So this is very, very eye-opening, very alarming that many of them are not even making $60,000 a year. Definitely raises a concern. How can we advocate for these leaders of color in the pay scale? It's showing here they don't even really make up to $60,000 a year. So how can we retain them? What can we do? Are there bonuses that we can offer? Are there grants that we can get? Are there supplemental parts of income? Is there federal funding? What is there that we can do to support these rock star teachers so that they're not leaving the education profession? So with that said, I want to share my screen and I want to talk to leaders about how you can advocate for these leaders. So this article is from Education Week. And it says how schools can support leaders of color according to experts. So let's, okay. So it says here, how do you support? So here it says, while about 53% of public school students are people of color, about 80% of the educators and administrators are white. To ensure that the school district leaders are more closely reflect or that they more closely reflect their students requires intention and investment at every point along the talent development pipeline, from supporting Black leaders, Black teachers, and providing them opportunities to move into leadership and to give them the tools that they need to be successful. So this guy, Baron Davis, said that. This guy right here, this rock star right there. Now, let's keep going. So he talks about We're asking educators of color to participate in the marginalization that they've probably even experienced as students. Okay. And it says, and so they really have a negative perspective of what the educational experience looks like. They didn't see a lot of representation, so they don't see it as a viable option for themselves. This is powerful. I'm going to repeat that what this man said. It says they didn't see a lot of representation, so they don't see that as a viable option for themselves. I know personally, being a student, I only had two African American teachers in my entire education experience. That was second grade, and then that was sophomore year of college at the University of Florida. Other than that, I did not have representation. Now, here are some highlights of this discussion. What is he saying that we need? So he says leaders need consistent support to succeed. Now, what does consistent support look like? So, whether it's emotional support, whether it's verbal support, support and documentation, leaders of color are needing that support. So, look here at the situation. It talks about Kane left a rural Maryland district last year amid an uproar over a letter she wrote following the protest over the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Um, it says here, I've had a member of the community who decided that I was indoctrinating children by saying that we have to find a way to help our children to make sense of images that they see on TV. And she said that she felt that she was under a microscope as a Black woman in leadership. So this is very interesting. Of this, like, how was she supported as a leader when she's dealing with trauma and dealing with this tragic situation? Um, she's obviously saying she's feeling like she's being under a microscope. She doesn't feel support. Um, this is unfortunate. And then it talks about here, let's keep going. It says, there are also few Black superintendents, but even fewer Black women superintendents. And it says, particularly, it's difficult if you're leading a district that doesn't look like you. And she says, it's tough to get Black teachers. And when you're, she says here, and when you look at the matriculation from teacher to leader, the numbers start to dwindle the higher you go up in leadership. Again, when you look at the matriculation from teacher to leader, the numbers start to dwindle the higher you go up in leadership. So the question, are there enough competent leaders to fill in the seats that are African American, Black, Hispanic, whatever? And if so, why are they not filling those spots? What are the loopholes that our districts have in place? Is it the resume process? Is it the interview process? Is it the application process? Is it the school board process? Is it the references? What is going on? Where are we dropping the ball? Why can we not get these leaders in these district positions? And so then he talks here about a divisive political climate has made it even more difficult to lead. So he's just speaking from his personal experience and saying it's difficult to be in a high leadership position as politicians stir pushback over how schools discuss issues like race and sexuality, assault against educators, period. So this has been his experience that he's sharing. He talks about how there should be successful equity efforts that are grounded in district policies. So interesting. He says here diversity can't be a box check thing. So you can't just say, okay, we got diversity, check. Like, you got to really create some comprehensive equity policies and integrate or interrogate how those practices affect marginalized students. This is very interesting. Well, we also know that when you talk about equity, not everybody in the nation is gung ho about equity. So I can see here how this right here would create some pushback and how some would be bought in and then some would kick back. So, you know, do what you can in your space. And then it says here, leaders need to show all teachers, including teachers of color, that they are serious about fostering a culture of inquiry that involves digging into data and making it a habit into really questioning assumptions. And she talks about here, this is Manhattan. She says the experiences of students of color impact the decision whether they want to enter a space that at times is extremely traumatizing for them as students. So, there's so much going on here. Pretty cool article. I think there was a lot said there, and I think that we could learn from the personal experience of that superintendent and uh, Superintendent Haynes that spoke, and McHatton, and what they provided for us. So I think that sometimes you just have to slow down enough and see what can we do to be intentional about supporting these leaders in our space? Like, and we'll talk about other tips for how we can communicate with leaders of color in a diverse workspace to better support these leaders. So I found this off of Blue Beyond Consulting, and they're talking about 6 tips for effective leadership communication in a diverse workspace. I think the reason why this is so imperative is because there's such a culture disconnect. There are different assumptions about communication and different assumptions about what particular people mean. Like, there's a woman that wrote a book and it was like, I'm not yelling. It's an African American woman. I cannot call her name. I apologize. But her book, it's titled I'm Not Yelling. And she's talking about how because she's African American, she automatically is assumed to be angry and aggressive and, ready to yell. And that's not it. Like, that's just her culture. And so sometimes it's being read into as her being hard to deal with, difficult, aggressive, instead of someone trying to come in and to see how they can support her. So, with that said, let's keep those things in mind about effective leadership communication. It talks about here stepping outside of your own norms and considering how it would resonate across a wide range of perspectives. Take time to think about the variety of viewpoints and backgrounds of your individual team members and how your message will be received. That's interesting. So it's not enough to just say, okay, I communicated, but take the time, pause, and say, how is this going to come across to all people, all subgroups, all genders? Like, what can I do to make sure that I'm, you know, not ruffling any feathers and that I'm communicating with compassion and empathy? Try not to get overwhelmed. You're all on the same team working towards the same goal. And I really wish we had that attitude. We're all on the same team working towards the same goal. We're not enemies, right? And then it says here, let's talk about the tips. So it says tips for effective leader communication in a diverse workplace. 1, reflect on your own beliefs. Take time to consider how your personal beliefs and biases may influence your communication tone, style, and frequency, especially your tone. Because you could say something and you can cause another culture group to be offended by how you're saying it, or, you could be stoic or whatever, and it could just come off as cold and, just someone that just is not easy to connect with, and you're just unrelatable and nobody wants to work with that. It says here, ask yourself, do I communicate more frequently or effectively with those similar to me in terms of age, gender, or race? What assumptions have I made about others that are not based on facts or personal experiences? So that's called unconscious bias. And we have to raise personal awareness to that to make sure that we can really communicate effectively on diverse teams. Now, the next bullet, celebrate differences. Tip 2. So it talks about how, recognizing the value of different perspectives and how that can bring, you know, various perspectives and, I think, success to your team. It talks about avoid planning team meetings or sending important communications on dates that large groups of people will be out of office. So if there's a particular holiday or particular cultural norm that is being celebrated, try to hold meetings, prior to that or after that. Like, try not to interrupt with that. Then it says, number 3, listen and learn. Be open to hearing about how someone's race, gender, age, and sexuality might be more impacting than their experience in your workplace, or how it might be impacting their experience in your workplace, excuse me. So this is very interesting, and it talks about how it could shed light on where they might have different priorities, motivating factors, and blind spots. Please do not dismiss somebody's personal experience, their personal story. I think it's a harassing situation, or it's disrespectful when we think, oh, their story doesn't matter, their situation, their life experience doesn't matter, because they're bringing you their best, and their life experience, their testimony, their story is key to making sure that you understand how they communicate and how they can function effectively in the workplace. Okay, tip number 4, individualize your approach. It says learn what communication styles and channels works best for team members. Some people are, bodily kinesthetic. They need to be in groups and do all the stuff. Some people are audio. They need to just say it. They need you to repeat it. Some are visual. They need you to show it to them. So it says find out what your team is most comfortable with and how to be flexible about using multiple communication channels. Providing training support. This is huge. I think that this bullet is so imperative. training support, because you want that person to be competent. You want them to be set up for success. It's not enough to say, oh, well, you got the job, we've got you here, so good luck figuring it out. We'll let you just figure it out and you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Well, why even entertain someone of a different subgroup if you're not willing to do what it takes to help them to be successful in your culture group? That doesn't make sense. And trying to help them be successful in the work culture and the climate. I think focus for many leaders that are having um, different backgrounds than those that are diverse in the workspace is providing training and support. I really want to focus on this one because I think that it is not enough to say we gave you the opportunity, go for it. Like, what if that person has never, really been experienced with this? I think it's abuse to put somebody in a position and not to properly prepare them for it. So, I think it's an area of focus that leaders need to consider. And then the last one, choose your words carefully. Avoid idioms, slangs, and industry jargon, um, especially because they don't translate across all cultures. And it talks about here remembering that the more diverse your team is, um, it's going to make you have to practice effective leadership skills because it's not just about you. It's now about the team. So these things is key whenever you're working with diverse leaders. So with that said, thank you so much, guys. This has been wonderful to just or to talk about supporting leaders of color, and seeing what we can do to come together to make things possible. So with that said, I'm so happy that you joined me on the Let's Get Gritty podcast. If you're wanting to connect with me, you can find me on social media. I will display my social media handles for you again. You've got them there. So Facebook is Miss India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. LinkedIn is The India White. You've got YouTube is India White 123. Instagram is Indie 238. And TikTok is Dr. India White. So also, please check out my website, www.india-white.com, if you're wanting to connect. And so, with that said, you guys have been fabulous. And I wish you a wonderful weekend. And until next time, stay gritty.